Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to the last Books Beside My Bed video for 2018. Who would imagine that I actually managed to get through the series every week for the entire year, and I am going to attempt to do it next year as well, which is kind of exciting. So this video is going up on New Year's Eve Australian time, so I hope that everyone has a wonderful New Year's Eve and a great start to the new year. Before I dive into the books that I read this week, I wanted to show you something really cool that I picked up in the Boxing Day sales. I now have a little compact vlogging camera. This is the Canon G7X, which I've heard really good things about, and since I didn't have a small compact digital camera with a flip screen, I decided to use a voucher that I had and pick this up. So I'm hopefully going to do some vlogging maybe in 2019, whether it's on this channel or on my teaching channel, I haven't decided yet, but let me know if you would like to see some vlogs and what sort of vlogs you would like to see, if you would like them on this channel, and I will see what I can do. This is just a little bit easier to manage than my big DSLR, which I love and I will always film on because it is my baby. But this is just a bit easier to carry around. Okay, and now on to the books that I read this week, and I had a massive, fantastic reading week because it was a holiday week and I basically did nothing but read. And I apologize as well if I sound a little bit funny. I think I'm getting a cold, which is ironic because it's basically been mid to high 30s all week here in Australia, and somehow I have managed to pick up a cold, which is really just like me, to be perfectly honest. But that's another reason why I've pretty much, you know, passed out on the couch with a good book, because I have not had the energy to do much else. So this is my reading week from the 23rd to the 29th of December. I do have 2 more days to read books, and I have 2 books that I'm hoping to get to, and those are the 13th book in the Psy-Changeling series and also Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. So those books I will hopefully read by the end of New Year's Eve because I'm not doing anything. I'm going to sit on the couch and watch my favourite movies and read books. That's how I celebrate the new year. In the last week I did read 11 books. I'm going to be talking about 9 of them today, and I'll briefly mention the other 2, but I'm going to film separate review videos for those because they're review copies that don't come out until early Jan. I read 3,497 pages and my yearly reading total is up to 272 books. Okay, I'm going to try and get through these books super quickly because no one really wants to be here for a super long video. The first book that I read this week was Pestilence by Laura Thalasser, and it was published this year in 2018 and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I picked it up because it seemed like an angel book, because really it deals with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and that sort of fits into that category for me. It wasn't terrible, but it was one of those stories where I think I expected something completely different, and reading it was just a bit of a shock to the system. So the story basically follows the end of the world, or the beginning of the end of the world, as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse arrive on Earth and basically right across the land, causing chaos, disrupting technology and all sorts of things, and then they disappear. And then suddenly Pestilence reappears and starts riding across the land, and wherever he passes through, everyone basically becomes horrifically sick and dies horribly within about 3 days. The heroine of the story, Sarah Burns, is a recruit firefighter, and in her town they're awaiting the arrival of Pestilence. They know they've been tracking him and they know that he's going to come through the town, and so they're sort of the last vanguard, and then they've designed a plan to try and take him down, and they draw straws and Sarah is the one who is left to do the deed while the others flee to try and be with their families. Obviously she attempts this, it backfires, she ends up his captive, and then it sort of goes from there. And what it really felt like was a bit of a Stockholm Syndrome sort of thing. So it was a paranormal romance, and I didn't buy the romance. It just felt a little bit off for me. So I don't know, give it a shot, see if you like it. It just probably wasn't my cup of tea in the end. The writing's not bad. I read it reasonably quickly. Then I read Kiss of Snow by Nalini Singh. This is book 10 in the Psy-Changeling series. It was published in 2011 by Galance and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This is basically the courtship of Hawk and Sienna. Hawk is the alpha of the Snow Dancer clan, so he's a wolf. And Sienna is, I think she's nearly 20 in this story, and she is one of the Psy that escaped the Psy net with her family. And they're a small, close-knit group of Psy that have taken shelter with the Snow Dancer pack. And really sort of the tension between the 2 characters has been building the whole way through the series. And there is a big age difference, so if that's something that you don't like, then I would steer clear of this particular book. At the same time, Sienna reads a lot older than she is. Like, she's almost not a believable 20-year-old, except she's been through a hell of a lot, so you sort of have to weigh up. Maybe she is a lot more mature than she should be because of her experiences. So it's sort of those weird things. I didn't have an issue with it. I actually quite liked it because I like the dynamic between them, because Sienna gives no quarter and she stands up to Hawke all the time, which I really like in a heroine in a paranormal romance series. The awesome thing about this is we spend more time with the Snow Dancer pack, as well as the Laurens, who are Sienna's family, and especially more time with Judd, who is rapidly becoming my absolute favourite character in the series. I really enjoy this. I've got 2 more books that I've read this week from this series, so I'll get to those in a minute. Then I read a short story called Misbehaving by Tiffany Reese. This is a romance short story, and it was published in 2014 by Harlequin, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was funny, sexy, and it was short, and just one of those things that you can pick up and read on the go. It is the story of Beatrix, who is a sex blogger. So she reviews sex toys and sex books and all sorts of things, and she is hilarious. She's traveling home for the wedding of her younger sister, and while she's there, she has to also work. She's been given a book that she has to review, and it's a book on sex positions, and she decides that to review it, she needs to try them out. And as it happens, the guy that she really, really loved in college but was hurt by is also there, and it is how they reconnect and also how misunderstandings happen really, really frequently. It was so funny. I really enjoyed it. Then I read Cinnamon Girl by Melissa Keel. This is a Love Osway novel that was published in 2014 by Hardy Grant Egmont, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It is set in a small rural Australian town, and it is about a group of teens who have just finished high school, and they're not really sure what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. Some of them want to leave the small town and escape to the city. Some of them have decided that they really want to stay, and some of them are afraid to make the decision to leave. Main character Elba is in that latter category. She is a wonderful artist. She designs comic strips, including Cinnamon Girl, and yet she's afraid to take the leap and leave everything that she knows in order to pursue a career in art. And then one day she and her friends discover a clip on YouTube that is an online psychic predicting the end of the world, and he gives coordinates to a place that will survive the end of the world, and it happens to be their town, and suddenly their town is swamped by people coming to witness the end of the world from safety. It's about how all of these characters, including Elba, actually cope with this, and it's really a coming of age story. It was funny and sweet and full of teen miscommunication as Elba and one of her best friends try to navigate a new relationship, and it was just a lot of fun. Then I read Tangle of Need, book 11 in the Psy-Changeling series by Nalini Singh. This one was published in 2012 by Gallant, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It follows Adria and Riaz, who are both members of the Snow Dancer pack. Again, we're focusing on the wolves. Adria is the aunt of one of the Snow Dancer lieutenants, so we sort of had met her earlier, and Riaz is one of the lieutenants of the pack who has returned recently, and the two have quite an antagonistic relationship with one another, and it's a lot of push and pull, and to be honest, it was probably not the highlight of the story for me. I was not all that interested in the development of their relationship. However, what I did like was how the story of the Psys and how their world is changing was progressed through this story. Plus, we get a whole lot of backstory on the Snow Dancer pack. We get to see the continuation of what happened in Hawke and Sienna's book as well, which was really important for information about the pack. And it's really rapidly clear now that you can't just pick any book up in this series and read it. All of the characters are now intertwined across the number of books. So it's sort of, you have to read these books in order to continue on, which, you know, is a clever way of getting people to read more books. Then I read Belladonna, Coven Road by Ruth Symes. This is a book that was originally released in 2010, but I think it's being re-released here in Australia. So it is a review copy that I received from Allen and Unwin, and I'm going to talk about it in a separate video, but I did give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is for the sort of junior fiction age range, 5 to maybe 8, and it was a lot of fun, so stay tuned. I will have a review for this up very soon. Then I read An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This is a young adult fantasy series that was published in 2017 by McElderry Books. So I had to check that one. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's probably not the best book out there, but it was very atmospheric and very well written, and it had all of the elements of a fae fantasy story that I really like. Plus, the cover is super shiny and really pretty. It is the story of Isabel, who is a young woman who is very talented in the craft of portrait painting, and all of the fae come to her for their portraits to be painted, because the fae themselves can't actually create any craft, whether that's art or cooking or sewing or anything like that. If they do, they'll turn to dust, but they can utilize the humans who are talented in those areas, and they commission them for works, and they usually trade them fae favors, which more often than not backfire. Isabel is quite adept at negotiating with the fae, until she crosses paths with the Prince of the Autumn Court, and then she is swept up into the Fey world and is in quite a bit of danger. As I said, it is very atmospheric. There is a bit of insta-love in it, but I almost forgive it because Rook is quite an engaging character. That is the Fey Prince. So it is well worth a read. I've heard mixed reviews, but I did really enjoy it in the end. Then I read Flight Risk by Michael Maguire. This is also a 2019 release from Allen and Unwin, and I'm going to be talking about it in more detail in another video. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It is a thriller, and yeah, stay tuned for my review of it. Then I read a short story romance collection, mostly because I found it for free online, and that's how I prefer to acquire my romance books. And it is Naughty or Nice. It's a collection of 6 short stories by 6 different authors, and it was published in 2018. I got it off BookFunnel and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars on average. I won't go too much into detail about it. I'll just tell you the titles of the story and the authors. So there was Sexy Scrooge by Vi Keelan and Penelope Ward, who I really enjoy. Big Baubles by Jodie Ellen Malpass. Sorry, I'm having to check my notes. The Naughty List by Emma Chase, which was my favourite story from the series. There was Joyous, A Quantum Christmas, which I think must be part of a series, and that was by Marie Force. A Holiday Lift by Corinne Michaels, and Best Christmas Ever by Susan Stoker. All of the stories were slightly different in tone. Some of them were just very sweet Christmas romance stories. Some of them were more smutty, and ultimately they were just a whole lot of fun. Then I read Heart of Obsidian book 12 in the Psy-Changeling series by Nalini Singh. This one was published in 2013 by Gallant, and this follows Caleb Krychek, who is one of the Psy counselors, or former Psy counselors by this stage, as he rescues another member of the Psy, someone that he knew a long time ago, a woman named Sahara, who is Faith Nightstar's cousin. For the longest time, we don't find out what Sahara's Psy abilities are, and they're really cool. She's technically an F designation, but she has backsight. There is a whole lot more going on with her abilities. This one was really interesting because Caleb has been quite an interesting but very mysterious character in the Psy Net. We know he has a lot of power, and we know that he's probably the strongest of the Psy, and we also know that he wants to take over the net, and we don't really know what his purpose for that is. I want to say that I enjoyed the romance, but to be perfectly honest, it was a little bit weird for me because he is extraordinarily controlling, and he does sort of back off a bit later on as you learn a little bit more about his history and why he is the way he is, and it's quite a tragic story, and it really calls into the question of how trauma affects young children. But this got super dark super quickly, and I was not expecting it to be that. This is probably the darkest of the Psy-Changeling's books that I've read so far, and I enjoyed it, but it was also just a bit surprising for me as well. What I did like was that we actually get to find out a little bit more about Caleb's motivations, so that worked out well for me. And then finally, I read The Big Over Easy by Jasper Ford, which is book 1 in the Nursery Crimes series. This was lent to me by a co-worker, and it was originally published in 2005 by Penguin. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really like Jasper Ford's writing style. It's witty and funny, and it takes a little while to get into his books, but once I get into them, I'm pretty good at pushing my way through them, usually in 1 or 2 sittings, which is what happened with this book. And this follows D.I. Spratt, who is a detective in the Nursery Crimes Division, and he is assigned all of the cases relating to nursery rhyme characters or fairy tale characters or the occasional Greek myth character. In this particular book, Humpty Dumpty has been found at the bottom of a wall, cracked open and dead. And it is up to D.I. Spratt and his team to uncover how he died, and basically they uncover a whole web of intrigue and mystery. It's a very clever book. There's so many nursery rhyme and fairy tale references in it that you sort of have to be mindful of that, because there's a lot of things that just made me go, oh, and pulled me out of reading just a fraction, but it was very clever. And I particularly liked the inclusion of Prometheus. That just made my day. So those are the books that I read this week. In the comments below, let me know if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts are on them. Also, let me know what has been your best read this week. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day. Have a wonderful New Year's Eve, and I'll see you guys in 2019. Bye guys.